All right. Well, Katie, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, of course. So, just a little backstory. Katie and I just recently met online and then in person, and it was just super wonderful and fun to be able to connect. And she's got some awesome information and support for women who are wanting to make changes in their lifestyle and their habits, and particularly in regards to health. And so, I'm super excited to have you on, Katie.
Yay. Yes, yeah, I'm so excited to connect with you and your community. And I feel like we have so many similarities based on how we're just trying to manage it all, And right when you think you've got the hang of it, life throws another curveball, right? And it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of like picking up and rolling with the punches and just trying to enjoy life while you're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So, why don't you just share a little bit about you and about your journey? Like, where have you gotten to this place?
Sure, sure. So, as a mom, I'm a mom of two boys. Bo is 7 and Mac is 5.5. And I guess from like a work perspective, I was always in the corporate world. Pretty much in marketing, whether it was agency or on the corporate side. I did take about a year and a half off to be with the boys. They were probably like 1 and 2.5 at the time. I just really wanted to explore our community and just kind of get to know people and where we were living, and just that time is so valuable and precious for children. So that was a fun time. But then I got back into the corporate world, and I would say about a year in, I just knew that. I mean, it's almost like you were eating the steak and then went back to the chicken, right? You like had this wonderful time with your family, and then I mean, I went back to really help our family, right? So that we could live like the lifestyle that we'd want to live. And it was really important for them to get back into school. And I just knew that corporate 9 to 5 wasn't for me, at least at that particular company that I was with.
Hmm.
So I decided to go off on my own, do my own thing. So I started my LLC. It's Whole Hearty Health LLC. So I teach momentum seeking women, because it's the momentum that can be so tricky sometimes. How to confidently build and consistently show up for a whole person wellness routine that helps them love themselves while getting healthy, not just when they're healthy.
Yeah.
And you probably hear that too, right? Where we set a goal for ourselves, whether it's a house project or a career wise or health or something with our family, and we're so hard on ourselves the whole journey. And what's to say that by the time we get there, everything is going to be magical and happy when
Yeah.
we're struggling along the way?
Totally. And I think that's something that it came up at our conference that we went to, was this whole idea.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before, is this like grass is always greener on the other side sort of phenomenon. And how
Yeah.
it's like if you're always seeking just to achieve that goal, or that one day, someday when I actually get to XYZ, are you going to
Mm.
always be longing for that? Are you always going to be striving for something different? And if you're not happy with who you are or happy with your life right now in the current circumstances that you're in, who's to say it's going to change just because you achieve some specific goal down the road, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it really goes across the board. Obviously, like health is a perfect example, because you might be depriving yourself of certain food groups, or you're, really committed to an insane workout schedule. And sure, maybe you can last a few weeks of that, but what's to say that when you reach whatever goal you were working towards, whether it was a number that you wanted, like on the scale, or a pant size, or maybe even like a personal record for a 5K, and you get it, like how are you going to maintain that? And again, what's to say that everything is going to be grass is always greener when this number appears? And what I've really learned throughout my journey is loving the journey. It's who you
Mhm.
become along the journey. And if you didn't set that goal for yourself, then you wouldn't be striving and really learning the potential that you have, and really growing into your self-worth and knowing what you're capable of. So I think that's really the tricky dichotomy of, should I even set the goal in the first place if it's not going to be maintainable or attainable? And then, how hard should I work if when I get there, it's not going to stick? And I think
Yeah.
that we can really get that in our heads.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's so hard. And so I know that there's lots of women listening and people in like my clients and things like that that will talk about this idea of starting something and setting that goal and then feeling like they take a couple of steps, they're really good with it. It's like, say, for instance, eating healthier. Then maybe they're good for like 2, 3 weeks or even less than that. And then it just falls to crap. And they feel like they failed at that thing once over again and again. And so then this story inside their head starts playing that says, I've already tried this in the past. It didn't work. I'm just failing. I'm going to fail again. And then that, and whenever they do try to try it again, it sets them up feeling already from the get-go that they're going to fail this time around. So how do you work with women and help them kind of navigate through that to help instill these habits and actually achieve their goals in a more unique way and so that they do gain that momentum?
Yes, yes. Okay, so the model that we work with is called the MIND model, MIND, and it's based on the certification that I earned from Duke Health in integrated wellness and behavior change. And it really goes back to these 4 steps of self-awareness and then self-compassion, self-growth, and self-worth. So for mind, and it's really like, I know people can throw out like frameworks and acronyms, but it's giving yourself the grace that you are going through a process at the very core of it all. And it doesn't matter, where you are or when you started or what the process is, but just acknowledging that you're going through a process is the foundation of everything. Because nothing happens overnight.
Mhm.
So the M in mind is for motivation. So we start with having a really, really clear vision in place. And again, this can span across work or a home project or even a family trip that you're planning or your health. So it's setting that clear vision. I guess from a work perspective, you can think of it as if you're working on a project, you have some sort of idea of what the outcome of that project needs to be, right? So having that vision in place for what it's supposed to look like, or for your health, for example, if you're on a trip in California with your family and you're all riding bikes together, it's that clear vision. Like, who are you? What are you thinking? How are you feeling? How are you communicating? What do you look like? What activities are you able to do? So that's the M, that's motivation. Like you get that initial momentum because you have that vision in place. And then step 2, I, is initiate. So you have to start taking action, right? You need to start experimenting. And you've probably heard this acronym before for FAIL, first attempt in learning, because you're not failing, you're just trying new things. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. It didn't work out for you. And if you think about it on the health perspective, maybe it was a like a program, like a 21-day or a 30-day or a 90-day fitness program, and you lasted 2 weeks because it just wasn't something that fit your lifestyle.
Mhm.
So it's really having self-compassion in that initiate phase when you're just trial and error, you're experimenting, right? Think of it as an experiment. And then step 3 is negotiate. You've had your time to experiment. Now you have to decide. You have to decide what you're going to hold on to and what you're going to let go of. And this is really the self-growth phase, because you got to like put your big girl pants on and say, all right, like I've had my experimental time. Now I really need to decide, is eating a sleeve of cookies at 9 o'clock while watching Netflix, do I need to hold on to that, right? Or is that something I need to let go of? And beyond habits, guys, it's even your thoughts, right? And Renee,
Yeah.
I know you're super in tune with this, that there are certain thought patterns that you need to let go of as well.
Yeah.
So then, and then the final step is dominate. And that's where you're like, okay, I've got this. I've done my experimentation. I set my vision in place. I know what I need to let go of, what thoughts and behaviors. I know what thoughts and behaviors I can hold on to. And now we dominate, right? This is where, yes. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the call, sure, there's going to come times where life throws you curveballs. You're going to get sick, or your kids are sick, or you're going to have to travel, and you just have to work out the kinks and make it your own to keep going.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's so many things that overlay in what in like my program in terms of like it really is so unique to each person. And I think that that's why people struggle so often is because they hear what Sally is doing and they immediately try to adopt what Sally is doing because it's working for Sally and it's not something that's going to work for you. And I think like one of my core things is kind of aligning with your priorities and figuring out what drives you and what things are going to motivate you and what things you want to have a part of your life and whatnot. And so having that unique perspective of really in tune and getting to know you and using that to leverage your health, I think is amazing.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I know you and I talked about this a little bit last weekend too with the Enneagram. So
Yes.
really honoring your personality. And there's so many different types of personality assessments, whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISC or the Enneagram, which is the 9 numbers. And whichever one you resonate with most, hang on to that. And that's where you give yourself grace and understanding too, really that self-awareness stage of the process to say, okay, I am an introvert and I really, really like to do things perfectly. For example, if it's not done right, then I'm not going to do it at all. And finding that method, whether it's health or wellness or work or decluttering your home or decluttering your life, it's honoring who you are. And it goes back to exactly what you said. Just because it's working for Sally, she might be an extrovert and a 3
Yeah.
on the Enneagram, and she has different core motivators than what you have. So, and I know sometimes that can sound frustrating because you're like, but it's working for her.
Yeah.
She's balancing it all. She looks great. I'm going to do what she does. But you just have to honor yourself at the core of it all and just understand who you are and what works and doesn't work for you.
Yeah, 100%. So, what are some of the trends and things that you've noticed with people in terms like you already kind of mentioned, like if you're a 1, you maybe are more in line with like wanting to do it 100% or nothing sort of an idea, but what are some of the big trends you've seen in different personality types and how they approach making these habit changes, whether it be their health or wellness in any other area?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love this question. So, I have a handful of clients who are ones, and ones are the perfectionist on the Enneagram. And really, the deal breaker for ones is they have an inner critic, and we all might have that inner critic, like the ego side of our mind that's telling us you're not good enough, and you're kind of wedged in the middle of your proud one moment, and then you feel like you're not doing enough in the next moment. But what has really worked with my ones is having a master schedule, having this master plan. They love whether it's like on their computer and they check it every morning at work, or they put it on their refrigerator at home, knowing what they need to do during the hours of the day that aren't committed to work. It's like those hours before work and after work and after the kids go to bed, where you kind of fall into old habits. They
Mhm.
love seeing on that plan something accounted for. Like, I do laundry at that time, or I can only work out at this time. So really having a schedule helps those perfectionists, and giving yourself grace throughout there, that if you didn't do the laundry Tuesday at 8:30 when you said you were going to, there's always tomorrow. But at least having it mapped out, I think that's the control factor, where you feel like I know and I can see that I have control over my behavior there.
Well, you may have just convinced me that I'm more 1 than the 8. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
No, but
Yes, right.
I think it's really powerful to kind of look at that. It's like what's going to work for you is going to be different than somebody else. And finding that thing that works for you is
Yeah.
kind of that like learning and exploring thing. And for us, like we've looked at like our chore system for the kids and stuff. And I told my husband, I was like, gosh, if we could just stick with one thing, we'd probably be doing so much better. But we always are like trying this and trying that and trying this. And so, but I think that's some of the process, right? Like that's some of trying to figure out what's going to work for our family. Us being really strict and on top of it all of the time is doesn't work for our family. So how can we incorporate a chore system or a habit system or meals or whatever? Like what are we going to be able to incorporate that works for our family and not for everybody else's? Because our life is crazy right now. Like we have so much going on. And so I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I haven't been to the grocery store in I think 3 weeks because going grocery shopping is just not feasible for us right now. And so it's kind of finding what's the groove, what's going to work for us right now in this season, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you and I actually have learned before too, like the 7 bridges, right? So you talking about your allowance structure and, maybe your routine for grocery shopping or meal prep maybe it's all like 7 bridges around child discipline, and you're trying
Mhm.
all these different things. And you're right. It's like if you were to just focus on one, but also going back to, does that make sense for you? And do you thrive in experimenting and trying new things? And that's great. Maybe you guys are really just experimenting and seeing what sticks, but then finally choosing that one and really honing in on it, that you'll very likely
Yeah.
find your answer there.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm kind of curious. As you've
Yeah.
worked with a lot of women, particularly in this area of wellness, which can be a difficult area for people to really stick to and make these lifelong changes, it just seems like one of those things we constantly hear in the news or the media, or like people are all of that. What are some of those biggest struggles and hiccups that you find that people need to work through in order to keep building that momentum?
Yeah, gosh, such a great question. So, kind of going back to the Enneagram a little bit, there are the twos who are the helpers, and one of the things that they struggle with when it comes to wellness is putting everybody first. So, making sure that their kids are accounted for, right? Their kids have everything they need for school. They're going to and from soccer practice. They're going to and from the birthday parties. They have everything they need. And then, right, maybe their spouse, making sure that like the grocery shopping is done for him, and making sure dinner's on the table. And then, if you're a caregiver for your parents or your friends, your friend has an art show or something that you want to support her with. So one area where people are struggling is not putting themselves first. And yeah, it goes back to the self-care, where I know that's like a big trend right now, and you and I have actually talked about this too. It's not just like go take 20 minutes and put a face mask on. It's really, that's just a band-aid to the bigger
Mhm.
problem. If you are prone to continuously putting others first and not taking care of yourself, then you can't show up for other people. So that's one way where really honoring yourself, and it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And for a 3, for example, they might be honoring themselves first, or they are more likely to honor work first. And they said that they were going to work out at 11 o'clock or at noon on their lunch break, but they have a deadline, and it's more important for them to commit to that deadline. Or even if they don't have a deadline, they're just more comfortable working than working out. So those are several struggles, is just putting others, whether it's work or family or friends, before you. And one of the solutions to that problem is taking that first step, that motivation step, to set that clear vision, so
Mhm.
that when you are stuck at your computer, or when you're at a work event and everybody else is having 3 or 4 drinks and getting into all the appetizers, they don't have the goals that you do. And yes, maybe you lived that life previously where that was you. Whenever there was free booze or free food, you were on it. But you have new goals now, and what worked for you 5 years ago isn't going to work for you now, right? You might have kids now that you didn't have 5-10 years ago. So it's really starting from the center of, what is it that you want for yourself, getting so clear on who you want to be and
Mhm.
why it's important to you. What's the point of it all, right? and
Right.
and different people will have different importances, and then figuring out what's been blocking you and how to overcome those blockages, those obstacles.
Yeah. Well, and you may have already answered this in terms of like, so my next thought, we talked a little bit about those mindset, like, and the beliefs and the stories that you're telling inside your head. I've been working with a group of women who have all been noticing that they feel really guilty taking care of themselves. So this sort of self-love idea of choosing to work out or choosing to relax or choosing to do any of these things, they feel guilty. So would have you found that that's more common? I would guess with the twos, but have you noticed it following any of the other personality types, or have you noticed something else in that lines? And then hold on just a second.
Yeah.
What, honey?
Yeah. Oh, hey,
Can you say
sis.
hi?
Hi, cutie.
I don't know what this one is, honey. I can't get it to go. I don't know. Daddy changed the password on that one. I don't know what it is. It's disabled now. Sorry. You guys stay in the bedroom, okay?
Oh,
She's
I
like,
so
"Is
I
this?"
got to see one
She's
of
like,
them.
"Is it a mommy? Is this a mommy day? I get to be on my iPad. Shut the door, baby." She's like, "Do you have a call today?"
So cute. You're like, nope, just talking to myself over here.
Well, she always
So
is. Like, she looks forward to the calls because she knows that she gets to watch a show or
yeah.
something during that time when she normally doesn't.
Yes.
So, yep.
So cute. That's what we
Okay.
do. But yeah, so you
I
had
will.
said beyond the 2 on the Enneagram, beyond the helper. Yes, I think that it's actually an inherent trait of women to judge ourselves for not doing enough for others. And whether what's an Enneagram number we haven't talked about yet? A 9. So a 9 might feel like they don't know what their purpose is. They just want everyone to be happy, and that's the peacemaker number. And they feel terrible putting themselves first. So really across the board there, you could find 1 through 9, or even down the disc or the Myers-Briggs for your personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's a female trait. And it's ironic with International Women's Day being yesterday, but that feeling of, generation after generation after generation, women being the responsible ones that are supposed to have it all together, right? And making sure that the home looks great, and that you should never have Christmas decorations up in February, let alone March, and make a warm dinner on the table, and meal prepped, and exercising, and looking fit, and being happy, and volunteering at the PTA and at church. And I think it's truly an inherent feeling that women have that really spans across all of the Enneagram numbers and personality types. And it's a really hard thing to work through.
Yeah. Well, and I think you even just touched on too, is this idea of the expectations and like getting really in tune. And this goes back to all of what you've been saying. It's kind of like pulling it all together are the expectations and those stories that you're holding for yourself, are those things that you value and that you hold for yourself, or are they superimposed by everybody else around you? And those expectations that you're holding for yourself, is that something that you really want to carry, or is that something that you really value, or is it something that somebody else told you that you need to value or carry?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. Hal Elrod has a podcast. He wrote The Miracle Morning and The Miracle Equation. I think it's the Achieve Your Goals podcast. And he, on a recent episode, was talking about values and how, whether you know it or not, you have values. And this actually goes in during like the motivation section of my process. But he said the worst way to spend your day is based on somebody else's values. So like a surefire way to achieve unhappiness would be living your day based on someone else's values.
Yeah.
And I think that like values and morals and principles can be like, it can kind of feel cliche, like whatever, I don't know what my values are. Like I value health and family, but this process, and I have it in one of the freebies I'm going to share with your audience, is going through times when you are your happiest, your proudest, and your most fulfilled. And really, if you can have some time to like go in your room and close your eyes, play some music and journal or meditate, or even if you're just driving, or if you're at work and you need just like a mental vacation, putting yourself in your happiest, proudest, and most fulfilled moments, and just see what you write down and what comes up, that really does help you pull out what your values are. And tying that to whatever goal you have for yourself is what's going to help you show up in the moment when you just want to sit on the couch or stay in bed or yell at your kids, or just not show up as the mom you want to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that's really important for you, like how you pointed that out, in terms of oftentimes when I ask people what their initial values or priorities are, it's like number one, you always get like God, my spouse, my kids, my work, like, and 99% of the time that's what comes up. And what I really like to try to elicit is kind of what you're talking about, in the sense of like, where are you fulfilled? What makes you happy? And so like for our family, one of our core values is making memories, and like that's a priority for our family in terms of like when we're looking at something, whether it be spending our money or spending our time, or like when we make choices between different things, that is one of our core values for our family. And so looking at those like finding, like you said, those things that make you feel really happy and make you feel fulfilled and make you feel great. And what are those moments? Like, what are those, what's the essence of those? And how can those be your core drivers and those things that help you determine whether or not you say yes to something or no to something? So I love
Yes,
that.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you have core values for your family
Yeah.
because businesses have them, right?
Yeah.
And they have their mission statement and their values and their principles. And I absolutely love that you have that for your family. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
inspiring. I'm
Yeah.
gonna create that today for my family. To, have like a team meeting and say, okay, like what's most important to us? Or, even taking those three things like happiness, happiest, proudest, and most fulfilled. Like, what do your kids say? And
Hmm.
like to grown-ups, we might say, oh, when I was promoted, or when I started that business. And kids might say like, oh, when you took me for ice cream. It's like
Yes.
the sweetest things and it helps you understand what's most important to them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like, what are they remembering? And I think that that's something somebody recently one told me, like they were talking about, like if you go through your whole day and you maybe blew up at your kids in the morning and you had this like big massive blowout, but at some point in the day you took the kids to get ice cream or you went and played at the park or whatever, like your kids don't, and you ask them at the end of the day, like what do they remember about their day, they oftentimes don't remember the mom blowing up for the 5-10 minutes in the morning. They remember the happier moments. Whereas as a mom, we tend to focus on those negative spots, those moments in the day where we failed, even if it was only a 10-minute window in the whole entire day. We focus on
Yeah.
that, where you like really realize what your kids are focusing on. They're focusing generally on those happier moments. And so helping you get out of that space of focusing only on that 10 minutes of negativity and focusing on all of the other wins throughout the day will help so much.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And I feel
Yeah.
like we're so hardwired to focus on the bad. We may have had the best day. Like we mommed so hard. We worked so hard. Our house is clean. But there was one thing, like we haven't texted our friend back in 3 days who texted us. And we will go on like we are the worst friend in the world. We focus on the bad. And I love that you bring that up about kids because what do they say? Like through the mouth of babes, like truth, like through the mouth of babes, that they speak the truth, and the way that they're living is so innocent. And it's something that we need to try to remember and channel to just enjoy life and experience it and remember the good and not be so hard on ourselves for the small stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, Katie, this has been a wonderful chat and I've loved having you on. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to make sure to share?
This has been so great, Renee. Thank you so much. One of the things I would love for your audience to remember is the second thought. And no matter what you are working towards, what journey you on, whether what you're on, whether it's for health or work or for your home or just being a mom in general, a relationship, knowing that that first thought that pops up, it might be negative, right? And just like we were just discussing, and it's going to take a lot of time and practice to overcome that negative thought, but you are in control of your second thought.
Mm-hmm.
So if that first thought is, I'm doing it wrong, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, my house isn't clean enough, you can control that second thought to say, hey,
Yeah.
but I could do this right now. Or hey, but I have that, right? Coming back at it with gratitude or an empowering thought that will make your next action more positive than if you kind of stood in that negative thought lane.
Yeah, one of the big, and I mean, another big thing that we talk about in our house is where this is a house of second chances. And that comes in turn, like your
Love that.
thoughts, like you get to choose again. This is you get a second chance at the way you talk to yourself. You get a second chance at whatever. And so having that's an idea that you get to choose what that second chance or that second thought is going to be. I love that.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm learning from you today. The house of second chances. I love that.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
and I
Family
think,
value,
yep.
second chances.
Yes.
Got it.
I feel like, and then just a little bit of a side note tangent, but like my oldest daughter can go into a spiral so freaking fast. And so
Yeah.
for me, it's like, for her, it's like one thing, it just it triggers to this end doomsday be all thing. And so I'm trying to instill in her that you do get to make that, you get to choose if that's the path you're going to go down. Just like you said, like your thoughts are going to choose to stay there, or if you're going to choose to go somewhere else. And so that's where I think it's so powerful when you understand that just because you've taken one or two steps in this direction doesn't mean you have to stay on that path. You can choose a different path, you know?
Mhm.
So yes.
Yeah, yes, 100%. Yep. Like just like that, like flipping the switch, or I'd heard it once too, like changing the channel on the TV, which our kids don't really do these days. They just go on Netflix with a
I know.
remote. But back in the day, you and I changed the channel, and just like that. And again, easier said than done, but with practice, you can have a second thought. You can have that second chance. I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so how can people get in touch with you and in touch with all of that you have going on online?
Yeah. You can find me over at wholehearty.com. So whole like WHOLE and Hardy, my last name. And I do have a freebie for you guys. It's the Inner Boss Outer Wellness Planning Guide. So it's a quick, free 10-minute training, all very similar to what we talked about today, going through that mind model. So creating your vision, defining your values. And, we talked about it before we jumped on the podcast, but I forget if we said it on here, having that, not having 15 things to do in the day, just choosing those top 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
So at the end of the planning guide, you get to choose your focus area and 2 action steps that you're going to take that week. And then that's it. Just focus on those 2 things and not harp on them. And when you start to get those negative thoughts, just remind yourself you have a second chance with that thought and to keep going. So that's over at wholehearty.com if you guys want to check it out.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for coming on and sharing with everybody your wisdom in terms of making those changes in our habits and our wellness and our health, and making them long lasting habits and not something that just gets a little bit of oomph and then fizzles out, but that actually can last for a lifetime. So I'm super excited for everybody. Make sure if you took away something in this episode that you're going to actually put into practice, go on over to Instagram or email or whatever and let Katie and I know. We would both love to hear from you. And I think that's it.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Cool. Thanks so much, Renee.